your journey?
My journey, I think, is synonymous with the journey of Aparajita as an organization. Aparajita was formed in 2000 with the idea of taking HR services to a larger group across the state first. Basically, being a chartered accountant, I think I was very risk averse and had to plan everything to the T. And I think one of the greatest learnings I've had in the journey of entrepreneurship is to balance both. I think somewhere there is an element of detailing and planning that is required, and at the same time there is an element of let go and not getting into micro detailing. This balance is more an art than a science, which I think a person gets to know over a period of time. So time and again I would say the journey of Aparajita has been such that it's enabled me learn to balance a lot of things and somewhere strike the middle path, and that too spontaneously. I think effectively, if I were to put it in a nutshell, that's how I would view it. Because as a chartered accountant, I think I was a very left-brained person, intent on getting that first rank, working very hard at ensuring that the results were definitely there, etc. And equally, as a person with a lot of empathy, there was a right-brained person who would reach out to this HR orientation or people orientation, which probably was a very odd but potential combination, which happened to be my greatest strength in building up this organization. But in the journey, I think as a person I have improved dramatically. I think I have evolved out of my various thought patterns which had probably been binding me or imprisoning me at various points in time. So much so that I realized that entrepreneurship is the best way to go ahead for a person to evolve, simply because it puts you through such a roller coaster ride that whether you like it or not, if you are just a little aware of how those roller coasters go through, you definitely emerge out of it stronger. So I would say that in that sense, if I were talking about the journey of Aparajita, in the first 2 years, maybe my approach would have been different. The next 2 years, it has been different. Again, the 5th year, 8th year, 10th year, today when we've completed about 13 years, the way I look at my journey is completely different. I almost see it as a journey of evolution, where I think you're becoming a better and better person because of the way entrepreneurship treats you in life. Nothing is certain. You do so much of planning, and then tomorrow, just by a single toss of a coin, the whole thing goes very differently, and you still go ahead with a smile. These are not cliched statements, but I think these are really facts which one has undergone at various points in time to believe that this is how it works. So somewhere I read somewhere that the art of living is to balance, as if you plan as if you're going to live forever, but act as if you're going to die tomorrow. Somewhere these kind of inconsistencies, holding two opposite ideas in contradistinction together, and then being comfortable with it in a state of uncertainty and going ahead, which I think is what best a person can actually have, and I think that entrepreneurship has given me as far as Aparajita is concerned. So even now, the other point is, I think there is you have a tiger by the tail in entrepreneurship. So even if you want to, there is no turning back and you keep going ahead. But that by itself, with a little bit of awareness, prepares you for a much better journey and to be a much better person. So I think the greatest reward of entrepreneurship is the possibility of evolution. That's how I would put it in a nutshell.
You were also sharing your experience about the interactions with the students on entrepreneurship.
Yeah. When I have a chance to talk to quite a few people, not necessarily youngsters, about entrepreneurship, I think one thing that is not very clear for many people is to why do they want to become an entrepreneur. I think the simplest thing is a belief that entrepreneurship by itself brings in a lot of money, which need not necessarily be true. Secondly, probably there is a belief that you're your own boss, which again is not necessarily true. You probably have multiple bosses in each of the customers around. And probably it gives you a lot of leisure time, which again will become true only after quite a few years, and that too if you're blessed with success of a particular kind. So somewhere these are assumptions that people have, and therefore when I question people on why they, if anybody talks to me about entrepreneurship, one of the questions that I always ask them is why an entrepreneur? To answer that for myself to begin with, I would say that when I became an entrepreneur, I had a very, very simple objective. To provide employment to 100 people. Looking back, I'm not sure whether that was the best objective to have, but at least it was a starting point for me. It was not actually a lot of money that I was looking to make, though definitely there was an incidental objective. But for many people whom I talk to who have already become entrepreneurs or who want to become entrepreneurs, I think the clarity is not there as to why they want to become entrepreneurs. If it is for leisure, if it is for money, if it is to be their own boss, I think then they are setting themselves up for failure, is my personal view. Definitely they have to be in touch with themselves to understand where it comes from, and then if it comes from a passion, which is very good, but then that passion also needs to be rounded off at some point of time, because entrepreneurship is about multiple dimensions. If you are passionate about a product, if you are passionate about a service, that by itself does not translate into entrepreneurship too. It has to be kind of tempered by financial discipline. It has to be somewhere garnished with people management skills. It has to be, most importantly, I would say, embellished with heightened self-awareness. To me, I think one word that I would repeatedly use is about awareness for an entrepreneur, as to why he wants to be an entrepreneur, where he is lacking, how he is going to supplement the skills that he doesn't have. Some of it may be temperamental flaws, and how is he going to supplement that with skills of a complementary kind, which can make him a well-rounded person when he goes ahead with an organization. I think these are things that people will have to be aware of. But somewhere amongst the knowledge, skill and the attitude part, knowledge today seems to be the easiest to acquire, either by yourself or for a particular payment. Skills, I think, definitely get honed over a period of time. But the kind of attitude and an approach to entrepreneurship, which in one sense becomes an approach to life itself, is something that seems a little difficult for people to get there. And then again, it is not about being taught, it is about learning it over a period of time. So if people can think on those lines and answer the question very honestly to themselves as to why they are looking at becoming an entrepreneur, and then prepared to put in that kind of work to ensure that their passion is kept alive while the other areas are rounded, then it will really augur well for them as they go ahead with their entrepreneurship, which I think is not completely so in many cases, or at least in a few cases that I have come across and spoken to.
In sum, the way I understand is the emphasis on self-awareness and all that. You look at entrepreneurship as a very spiritual journey, which should be possible even if one is working in a large organization. It's not that one has to break off.
That's a wonderful question. The only thing is, to me, entrepreneurship is absolutely a spiritual journey. There's no doubt about it at all. Yes, employment can also be a spiritual journey. Any work can, for that matter, can be a spiritual journey if you go by the tenets of Bhagavad Gita. But having said that, probably in entrepreneurship, the roller coaster is much higher, is what I would believe. In work, at some point in time, at least you have the chance of throwing the towel in if you want to. And to that extent, those seemingly choiceless, the choice is higher, is what I would think. To that extent, I think the possibility of evolution, the possibility of spiritual journey, if taken appropriately, seems very high in entrepreneurship, and I have been a beneficiary of that journey myself.
One final question, Bharat. You see a lot of entrepreneurs who start off with great dreams, but you see them also not going beyond maybe the first phase of the heightened mortality phase, or less than 3 years of survival. So what do you see as the major reasons why so many of them fail? Maybe they didn't start off with the right goal, or started off, maybe they focused only on one, or they sacrificed predominantly on their own HR. Where do you see the increased fatalities happening?
Yeah, I have a personal belief that one learns both from successes and failures, and it's important to reflect. I believe strongly in very reflective learning, and I think each of our journeys is very, very personal and individual at one level, and it depends on how I handle my success and failure. And again, the locus of control, whether I believe that the success or failure has come completely from myself, or from a larger group, or from probably even something that's external. There are certain times where, there are many times where fortuitous circumstances enable you to be where you are, and I think it's important to recognize that human effort can do this much, and there are other things that also matter when you go ahead with the journey. And I also think it's about raising the bar constantly at various levels, raising the bar primarily for yourself, be it as an individual in terms of how you progress as a person, be it as an entrepreneur in terms of how you progress as an entrepreneur, and therefore for the organization. And to a substantial extent, it depends on how you model it for people also. And unless people see you doing it, your action will always talk louder than your words. And I feel that entrepreneurs, need to have lofty visions, but at the same time break it down into smaller portions which are achievable, and then cross that, and then again set the bar a little higher so that it can be done in portions that way as they go along. And in the process, always be aware of what they are good at and what they are missing. I think we're all very comfortable with accepting what we are good at, and probably no matter what, we enter into the comfort zone. I've been guilty of that myself when the sixth or 7th year, I used to spend a disproportionately high time on the finance and accounting function because that was my zone of comfort. It was then that I realized probably I was actually preventing that function from growing and becoming independent just because I was comfortable. And I think it's important to understand that one has to come out of one's zone of comfort. One also understands that there are weaknesses as a person that one has, and therefore one has to handle it, and most importantly be allowed to improve by criticism than be ruined by praise, which I think a successful entrepreneur, the easiest thing that can happen is to be ruined by praise. And to be, while of course all of us love praise, there is no doubt about it, to be aware that it has limitations and be very open to constructive criticism, and constantly even pay money to people to throw stones at you, well-meaning people, I think is very important. At least in our organization, we internally do it. We all think very similarly as far as values are concerned or principles are concerned, but when it comes to ideas, I think we say it's the best idea that wins. It is not about an individual, it is not about the chair that matters. And that is something that success by itself, I think, makes us a little deaf to criticism. And if that's one thing that we are aware of consciously and invite criticism, because at any point of time, none of us can be 100% right. Today I may be talking all this to you, but I'm sure I'm missing out on 5 points, which I'll be very open to listen to if somebody comes and tells me, and I understand that their criticism is well-meaning. That probably is an area which is very, very personal. I think it is not about a skill or a knowledge, but again about awareness. If there was a simple slogan that I think each entrepreneur should be aware of, I would say it's own your numbers, know your risks. Right? Many times entrepreneurs, if they have an operational background or a marketing background, I think they're very passionate about the work they're doing, but one is not very sure whether they're on top of their numbers completely. And when they talk of numbers, are they talking only of the top line, or are they very clear about the bottom line? Have they gone ahead to understand what cash flow really means, why profitability and cash flow are not the same? And I think it's very nice for people to say, oh, I'm not great at numbers, my accountant handles it or my auditor handles it. But I think an entrepreneur just can't say that. I think if he wants to be an entrepreneur and build an organization, owning every number, you should be very thorough with those couple of numbers on the top, how it falls through to the bottom, what is the tax payment, what stands as cash ultimately, what gets locked as working capital. And in my own journey, if there was just one point that has to be picked up, which I would say was the most important contributor in this journey of success, as it stands today, I would still say financial discipline. I think everything else is equally important. I can list out 100 things that are important, but I would definitely rate financial discipline as number one. And for that, the beginning is owning your numbers in the first place. So I find when I talk to entrepreneurs, if I ask them about their numbers, they'll say, sir, I'll just check up with my accountant, which I think is not the right way to approach entrepreneurship at all. Or if you talk of a business plan, where would you be 3 years down the line? There is no point in just talking of high visions or qualitative statements. While they are definitely motivational and inspirational and they are needed, I think translating those visions and missions and 5-year strategic plans into clear numbers as to what they would be as top line, bottom line, working capital and OD, etc. is absolutely essential. Equally essential is knowing your risks. Sometimes I think when there is success, it is always nice to believe that we are responsible for our success and we just keep going ahead. But at every point in time, I think there are certain risks which are very clear, right? And which are not very clear or visible to us. And for an entrepreneur, it's important to keep following up those risks and revisiting, because the nature of risks keep changing. Maybe what was risky 5 years earlier is no longer risky today, but then you have a different type of risk. So any point of time, mapping your risks and whether you want to accept those risks, avoid those risks, control those risks, diversify those risks, or share those risks. You will have to take some action on them. Yes, some risks may not be avoidable at all, but then you at least say that I'm consciously accepting them and I know these are the risks that are there. But just going there blindly is definitely not the best way for an entrepreneur to go ahead. So I would always think that if I had a 2-minute elevator pitch to an entrepreneur, I would say own your numbers, know your risks.